Hey everybody, what's going on? Baru here, and today I want to talk to you all about patch 1.2.0, which is the patch right before Michael Myers ends up getting released tomorrow. They've already announced that it will be coming out, and they've made quite a few balance changes to kind of bring everything up to speed. So I figured let's go ahead and make a quick video going over most of the important changes that were made to the game that has honestly, they've changed a little bit of the balance here as far as the actual maps. Now let's go ahead and go over this. I'm not going to bother about the whole UI being changed. The killer music's a little bit different. That's whatever. But let's go ahead and go over some of the bigger changes. Number one, vacuum vaulting has now been removed from Dead by Daylight. If you don't know what that means, basically, if you run directly at a window, straight at it, and you spam your spacebar, you will be able to jump through the window at an increased speed, almost double the normal speed, and it would feel extremely unnatural. You would basically snap to it and jump through it, and you would get this speed burst, and it would make it extremely difficult on certain pallet loops, or not pallet loops, certain window loops, and it would actually be, rather difficult to try and, catch a survivor. Now, with this change being made, survivors are now going to have a much harder time trying to escape the killer, as well as they're not going to be able to use long lines of sight with a window in order to gain a large movement speed bonus. Now, as far as survivors that played naturally without abusing this vacuum vault, you will now see that it's really not too much different. You do need to make sure that you're angled appropriately so that way you still do your fast vault, but overall, it's not going to be that big of a change to the lower ranked survivors, because most of them didn't really use vacuum vaulting to begin with, and at the higher tier it's going to be just a tiny bit harder, but if you played without it, it shouldn't be that much of an issue. Now, one of the other bigger changes that was made was to the trapper. Now, before, you would put a trap underneath a body, and what would happen is you would unhook the person, they would fall into the trap, and then you would undo the trap. Well, that has now been changed inside of this patch. If you put a trap underneath a hook, it will now automatically trap the first thing that goes into it. It doesn't matter if you're in a hook animation or anything, you can now no longer sort of, what's the word that I'm looking for here? You can't really buffer it. You can't buffer the trap anymore to try and get a free escape out of there. You're going to have to just dismantle the trap, and then you have to actually get the person off the hook. So Trapper got a small buff in that sense, and that it made it a little bit more difficult for survivors to actually get, to save the friends. Now, there's a little bit of an issue with this, because right now, because of this change, it can actually be incredibly difficult, because the unhook and the disarm trap are on the same key binding. So unfortunately, that is a rather iffy change to be made to the game, and I'm really hoping that in the next patch we'll see, hopefully these will be on two different key bindings, because one of the bigger issues, or rather, I guess not really bigger issues, one of the more annoying issues with the killer is that when a survivor throws down a pallet, breaking a pallet is on M1 as well as your swing, so when you go up to break it, you would end up meleeing the pallet for no reason, and you're just like, well, I just gave them more and more free time when all I want to do is just break the pallet. Well, that has actually now been alleviated. Pallet break is now on spacebar, and swing is now on mouse 1. So now you no longer have to worry about meleeing pallets. So I don't see a reason why we can't potentially also have the ability to disarm traps with, say, a different key binding of some sort. Let it be just something. It can be spacebar. It can be whatever. Just some sort of way to disarm the traps without actually having to, do a song and dance before every single hook. Now, some other things have been changed as well. The jungle gym tiles, the T-walls, the L-wall T-wall combo has made a return back to Dead by Daylight, because the original jungle gems that were inside the game, the one that people abused and were infinites, were problems, but as a result, the T-wall L-wall combo also got nerfed, and that has now been reverted back. So survivors who had a huge issue with that problem there, thankfully that'll be alleviated now. So you have your normal ways of juking the killer. You can actually use, very skilled methods to try and juke the killer instead of just like, hey, here's an infinite, you know? So I'm all for that. Let's bring those back. They weren't true infinites. They were just annoying to newer killers. So glad to see that ends up coming back. There's also been a few other changes as well to the Wraith. It looks like the Wraith this patch has been getting a little bit of a buff, and he very much needs some love right now because he is the weakest killer out of the bunch. So what can you expect now from the Wraith? Well, number one, you no longer trigger crows while you are cloaked, which is huge because you could just see a line of crows flying in the air. Even if you didn't have, you know, Spine Chill or Premonition, you would just see a line of crows coming towards you, and it's like, well, there's the Wraith. So that's kind of nice. So that'll help his stealth aspect. In addition, he no longer, well, he still growls, but it's been severely reduced. You're not going to be able to hear these growls, and he is now much more translucent, I think is the word. I don't know. Transparent, translucent. I don't know what word I would use there, but basically he invisible now. He's actually incredibly hard to see, and on darkest moonlight, he is basically invisible. So those are some much needed buffs to the Wraith, and they buffed him in the correct way, which I'm really happy to see. The Wraith is a stealth character, and so they buff his stealth abilities. And these are some of the changes that I've been asking for quite some time. It's like, hey, the Wraith is really easy to see in his cloak, make it a little bit darker. And they have done just that. So a lot of changes have been made to Dead by Daylight as a whole. We also have the pallet randomization inside the asylum. Pallets are now no longer going to be in specific locations in the asylum, and in the future they are going to be bringing random pallets to Dead by Daylight as a whole over all of the maps. So that way there's more randomness, and it's not just, hey, I see this specific tile, I know what I can do on that tile. And as a killer, it's also really nice because I'm going to be expecting those pallets to be there, and they may not be there. So it's going to be a little bit of a mind game once all these changes end up making it into the game. The ones we just talked about are already in there, but the randomization of the pallets on the entire map is actually going to be really nice. And I think it's going to allow for a bit more mix-up rather than just run from pallet to pallet to pallet to pallet, because you would know where they all are. So randomization is a good thing. And it will make you think twice before, you know, getting in the killer's face, because now you're going to want to get a layout of the map before you really start, you know, getting his attention, because you don't want to get his attention, get hit, run to a place you think has a pallet, it's not there, and then you just get destroyed. So that is some of the bigger changes that have been made to Dead by Daylight. Overall, I want to say that these are some pretty good changes. You know, there's still some changes that I think that the game needs. Number one, Sprint Burst is still the #1 perk used. I would like to see them switch up teachables, but, you know, that's just me personally. But overall, I'd say that this is definitely a good patch for both Killer and Survivor. For Survivor, you've got your L-Wall, T-Wall combo back, and for the Killer, you can get rid of the vacuum vaulting, and you've got some buffs for the Wraith, which is really nice. The Hillbilly didn't really see any love the Hillbilly and the Nurse didn't really see any love this patch, but that's okay, because they didn't really need any. You know, they're already the strongest killer. My only gripe with this patch is that I really need to see a different key binding for Unhook and Trap, because as of right now, it can be extremely irritating to try and save your friends, especially if he's nearby. So that's really my only gripe for this. Overall, like this patch, looking forward to see what Michael has, and I will be putting out a video going over all of Michael's powers once I unlock them. So be sure to stay tuned for that, and thank you all for watching. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you're looking forward to more Dead by Daylight content, or hey, you just like the way that I sound, do me a favor, please hit the subscribe button. I think I'm still on Twitch Mind where it's follow, but not there. You know what I mean. Just, you know what, if you like it, whatever, leave a like or whatever it is people do. Anyway, thank you so very much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next week, next month, next year's video, wherever it ends up being. Thanks for watching. Catch you all in the next one, everybody. Later.